Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderaker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderaker. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. We finally made it. I'm Lynn Hinderaker with WowBiz Nebraska. I'm here with Casey Belitz, the man that is running the show here in Nebraska. Thank you for joining me.
Good to see you, Lynn.
All right, great to see you. You've got so much to share with my audience. You know, we're always talking about the evolution of Nebraska from an economic development point of view and a business point of view. Those are two kind of similar, but not exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah, and I know you know both sides of that coin, so we're going to ask a lot of questions today, and my audience is going to be thrilled with your responses. All right?
To some degree.
All right.
Yes.
So, the last 6 months, you joined the organization in Lincoln, and tell me what has been going on. Tell me a little bit about your organization and where you've been prior to this situation.
So it started, as you know, actually, in local radio in Columbus, and so you know, you and I we go back probably 30 years.
We do, I guess
of doing work together off and on, and so. From there, went to the Columbus Chamber for a long time and really had a good experience in that local economic development and Chamber of Commerce world.
Yes, you did. And let our audience know just a couple of the awards that you received over the 19 years, the spread that you had there.
I don't know that there are any particular awards, but certainly there were some good things that got accomplished. The Quality of Life Centers project, I think, is a good example of what got done, which I think is also, I hope, an example of what can be done even in small communities like Columbus, where pretty much concurrently we built a new public health department, a STEM academy in our high school, a new YMCA, and a new library. Last one of those projects was the library, just wrapped up this last summer, and it's really gratifying to see those things come to fruition. As you know, that's why you do this work.
Absolutely.
To see those things happen.
Yeah. And the relationships that you form along the way. I know that's extremely important to you.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. And then you went to the Community Foundation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Nebraska Community Foundation. I was there for 4.5 years, give or take. Really an extraordinary organization, extraordinary mission. I think what's good for Nebraskans to know in that context, and I think this theme will come up again, is that we take for granted what Nebraska Community Foundation is. Truly, in the literal sense of the word, unique. It's the only statewide community foundation that does the work the way it's done in Nebraska, where it is community-centric. All of the decisions are driven locally. The Community Foundation in Nebraska is not a grant maker. You know, the mothership or the home base isn't deciding what's going to happen in Bertrand or Stewart. The people in Bertrand or Stewart are deciding that, and it's the only.
So you push it out to the.
Yeah, it's the only statewide community foundation that does the work in that way. So, really proud to have been associated with that team.
And they do some research also in that organization, don't they?
It's not core to what NCF does, but I'm sure what you're alluding to is in the last 4 years. NCF did a youth survey, a Nebraska youth survey, where we talked to high school students across the state. Certainly, we can dive into that, and we should, because it's certainly important in our conversation going forward.
Yeah,
and that was good work. But primarily NCF exists to support the dreams and the hopes of those local communities, and it's an extraordinary mission, and Nebraskans. You know, we generally are humble and we put our heads down and do the work. That's what we do. What we've done since the state was founded, and so that's another example. So yeah, that was an awesome experience over those 4.5 years in small towns all over Nebraska.
I appreciate you sharing all that with us. Now tell us what has been your perception when you joined the Nebraska Economic Development Department as its director 6 or 7 months ago. What were your initial thoughts after you'd been there maybe a couple, 2-3 weeks? What was your gut reaction and what ideas did you have?
I found where the coffee machine was. That was a good start. Those first 2 weeks, right? Really, honestly, my first impression, and it is still my impression, is that's an extraordinary team of people. They are public servants in the true sense of the word. And I mean, that's the reality of working in state government, working in government generally. I think, you're not there because you're getting rich. No different than working at the community foundation. No work different than working at the chamber. Again, if you're in those roles, it's not because you're getting a big salary. You're there because those things are important. The work is important. And DED is full of people who think that way.
How large is the staff, by the way? I have no idea.
It's about 110, 115 today.
Oh, really? Okay.
Still have a few we're trying to fill, but we're making progress on that one.
So you divide them up, I'm assuming, into why? It's interesting to think about you from a leadership or management point of view. How do you organize that kind of a staff? What's the general way of you focusing them on a geography? You guys take care of out west, you guys take care of eastern in the state, or is it different types of services that people have to be staying focused on?
It's interesting. That's actually another indication of one of my other observations, or maybe things that I came to understand differently than before I took the job. I had an assumption that there was probably more latitude than there is, and it's one of the realities of government work. Those staffs get built up around a program about something that the legislature has passed a law.
Sure.
And so, we're tasked with doing housing. So there's a housing team. We're tasked with doing community development block grants. So there's a CDBG team.
Got it.
That's how it works.
Okay.
So every one of those teams are formed around what started as a legislative bill.
Got it.
The only exception to that obviously there's just some administrative things, but
Sure.
But in terms of kind of the frontline customer-facing aspects of the department, the field staff, which is spread around the state to serve individual communities, really the only exception to that, where they don't have a specific program that they've been stood up to execute on.
Okay.
They really are there for the good of the
How many
state.
of those nodes
Six.
are there?
Six.
Okay. All right. And they check in with you on an ongoing basis, or do they you just deploy them and go get it done?
Oh, they're doing good work. They don't need to check in with me.
Yeah? Well,
that would just slow them down.
Yeah.
No, obviously, the field staff are sort of our connection point between a community or an economic development organization, whatever.
Sure.
And most likely some of that program staff that I was talking about earlier. You've got a housing thing, all right, that goes here. You got an entrepreneurship thing, okay, that goes there.
Okay.
That kind of thing. So, yeah, they certainly don't have any need to check in with me and have me confuse things.
Now I'm going to jump all the way to the end of the table and say, what's the challenge that bothers you the most? Is it affordable housing? Is it childcare? Is it workforce? Is it taxes? Is it schooling and education? What jumps out at you every day when you hit your desk and say, I gotta figure out a way to solve this problem?
This is not going to be a specific answer because there isn't one. But really the thing that wakes me up in the morning and we need to get to work is Nebraska has this, I would submit to you, extraordinary window of opportunity in front of us right now for a lot of reasons. And being an old chamber guy, chamber people I think generally hate missed opportunity even more than the things that go wrong. Missed opportunity just kills you.
Miss an opportunity.
Just kills you. And so that's what we just can't have happen. This is this unique moment in time, and I'm in this seat in this unique moment in time. That's what our team is going to do our best to make sure that we don't miss this opportunity.
Okay, do you want to flesh this out just a little bit more and tell us what the size and the nature of the opportunity is, or is it just a gut reaction to the chapter that we're in?
It's more than that. I think the data is clear that we have some opportunities in front of us. So I'll start with what I referred to earlier, the youth surveys and Nebraska Community Foundation.
Sure.
You and I have talked about that.
Yeah.
The centennial generation, so those kids are in high school and college and younger now, born just before and after the turn of the century.
Yeah, I haven't heard that phrase before.
They want different things than their predecessors wanted, and that's a reflection of the world they've grown up in, as we all are. But in doing those youth surveys across Nebraska, it's really striking how consistent they are. And I will say too, importantly, that what they told us in those surveys is very consistent with national trends and what you see in data from sociologists all across the country. And that is, so if you graduated from the class of '86 at Columbus High, I can tell you that if someone had asked you, what are you looking for in your future hometown, it would have been a job and nightlife and mountains and oceans and bar scene and all those things, right? We were all ready to go experience the world and do those things and have some fun, etc. It is a very different answer when you ask those kids today. And so we did in about 3,000 high school students that were surveyed in those years by Nebraska Community Foundation. When we asked them that question, what's the one thing you're looking for when you're going to decide where you're going to live? What do you suppose the top answer was?
Safety.
Safety, every time, without exception. Safety, good schools, family. So comparatively, what do we have in rural Nebraska? What do we have in Nebraska generally? Safety, good schools, family. So you think that this kind
of plays to our natural attributes?
So Columbus Chamber 20 years ago, 25 years ago, was part of a lot of conversations locally and with peers across the state where the conversation was, boy, how are we going to reinvent ourselves to be something we're not so that we can be attractive to young people? And that's a tough proposition, right? That's hard if you're going to be something you're not. Today, we don't have to have that same conversation. Today, we can have a conversation about how do we tell these young people who we already are, because that's what they're looking for. They want what we have to a degree that we have not enjoyed ever, or at least in 100 years. Now, is that 100%? Of course not. Of course not. But 96% of those kids don't want to live anywhere bigger than Omaha. They aren't interested in going to a bigger city than this.
So that lends itself to a conservative
I don't know that I would say conservative.
You wouldn't use conservative?
No, not necessarily.
If you don't want to change, because that's what it sounds like to me.
No.
I don't want to change my environment, to be sure.
No, I don't think that's the same thing.
Not
I
the
think
same thing?
liking what you have is not being unwilling to change.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So
Right?
you don't.
I like what I have. I can appreciate that and not have that translate into being scared of change just because I like what I have. Those are different things. So I think we should celebrate the fact that we have what they want. And that's not true just of Nebraska young people. Again, I think that's borne out across the country in terms of this generation. And I would submit, I don't have the Nebraska Youth Survey to back this up, but I think it's a fair statement that the chaos and uncertainty of the last 3 or 4 years in our country and our world has probably made adults think harder about, boy, maybe I'd like somewhere that's a little more
predictable.
Yeah.
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 Nothing
So
wrong with that.
I think, no, there's not. I think Nebraska is going to be served very well by some of those macro trends. So that's a part of it. The other piece of that story that I'll share that certainly surprised me when I heard it, and I think has surprised others, that makes us optimistic about the future, is that Nebraska is a relatively young state. Wouldn't have guessed that, right? I mean, I think we typically think of ourselves as being aging. Nebraska has the third highest percentage of kids 18 and under of any state in the union. Third highest. Sixth highest birth rate in the country.
Is this related to immigrants then, would you say?
Well, I don't know about immigrant. I mean, certainly it's a factor, but I don't think there's any one factor.
Okay.
We have a lot of young people in this state, and obviously that makes you optimistic about where we're headed in terms of workforce and talent and all of those things.
You don't have to worry so much about them leaving if there's a bunch more of them who want to stay.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
So
Do you think some people will come back because of the
No
nature
question.
of what you said?
No question.
Okay.
I think we hear it all the time. I mean, I've talked to people personally. Our team has talked to lots of people. I was talking with a group last night. We've had the conversations of people who say, "Man, if I could find a way to get back to Nebraska, I'd do it tomorrow." Okay. Well, we got to help them do that, right? That's our job. That's what gets me up in the morning. How are we going to make that happen for these people? Whether they're from here or not. I mean, that's not the dividing line here. We have people who want to live here. We got to figure out make that path.
Didn't Tony Goins go out and do some big pitches to get people to come back who had moved to Chicago and Minneapolis and blah, 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 and said, come back to Nebraska? Nebraska's calling, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, the Good Life is Calling campaign?
Well, yeah, and Tony was out pitching around in adjacent states, whatever it was, back in 21, I believe, something like that.
So 2-3 years ago.
They got a lot of awareness, but nobody came.
I don't know about nobody. That's probably a stretch.
I guess I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But I got the impression that nobody came.
Yeah.
Nobody's celebrating a resurgence in that area. Let me ask you this question it's not directly on point with this, but it is related to that, okay? I consider this a fascinating thing, and maybe you can solve this problem.
I doubt that.
This, by the way, comes out of Fast Company magazine. You know a little bit about them. And there was a survey done, 91% of all young workers looking for work said that innovation, quote unquote, was important. It was important to them to join an employer who was innovative or was developing new products and services. Right. And yet we learned back in, I guess it was 2021, when a big study was done, that Nebraska is number 46 when it comes to innovation. So the workforce, and I'm generalizing, the workforce is looking to be with a company, an employer who is innovative, and yet it's a fact that Nebraska is not innovative and is not perceived as innovative. Now, if that situation were put in front of you, what do we do with that? What does that mean? To me, that means something for sure. Somebody's got to teach Nebraska and get them motivated and actually reward them for doing much more innovation, and then publicizing whatever innovation comes out of that general idea, so that people hear about it and say, "I hear Nebraska is a cool place to innovate." Tell me I'm crazy.
Well, I don't know if you are or not. I can't diagnose that right here.
My wife would disagree.
Okay, fair.
No.
No, I mean, obviously, I understand what you're saying. It's certainly a valid point
And I'm
for us to
associating
discuss.
innovation with.
I think there's some assumptions or generalizations baked into what you're saying. I don't know how innovative was defined if we're ranking Nebraska 46. I don't know what that means. Maybe you do.
No, I'm assuming. I think we all know generally the development of new products and services in the business sector. That's innovation.
Yeah, okay. So again, there's some assumptions baked into that, but let's say the general trends are true. And I certainly don't argue that young people are interested in innovating. I think any of us generally when we're young are, so that's all good. I would challenge you to look at some of what's happening in Nebraska today.
Oh, I know that.
I've had the opportunity over these 7 months or even before to meet with, hear from, learn from a lot of Nebraska companies.
Absolutely.
You know, you look at Huddle, you
Great
look
example.
at Allo. These are some extraordinarily innovative people.
Oh, yeah,
and
no
they've
doubt about it.
become global forces.
No doubt about
and
that
certainly there's
whatsoever.
lots and lots and lots and lots of others. And it goes to actually the second point that I was going to make about why I believe we have this unique window of opportunity in Nebraska, and that is because of depends how you want to define it, but generally speaking, all of the things that are happening in let's call it the biotech space.
Yes. I know Governor Pillen just spoke about this recently in bioengineering, biotech.
Yeah.
It plays well to our strengths with agriculture and so on.
It really does.
Yeah.
We have an opportunity not just to feed the world, which we have for years and years,
Yeah.
but really to become a significant part of the fuel source as well, right alongside that.
Yeah.
And I've been in those meetings and listened to what these companies are intending to do. It doesn't get any more innovative than this.
No,
There's some extraordinary possibilities in front of us, and any young person that wants the opportunity to do stuff that matters, and that's another hallmark of the centennial generation.
Meaning.
They want to do something that has meaning, both where they live and where they work.
Yeah, it's a powerful idea.
So these opportunities are going to literally change the world in some pretty extraordinary ways.
All right.
And give them the opportunity to be as innovative as anybody on the planet within that space, because we have the resources that really, honestly, very few others can put all together into one package.
After I get through with this promotional sponsorship, I want to turn our attention to Iowa, Kansas, and South Dakota. These are states obviously adjacent to us. They're competing for the same young people that we're competing for. They're concerned about the same things we're concerned about. Iowa in particular has a very strong innovation orientation, I think. So anyway, I just want to mention that as part of a competitive mindset, you know, and really going after it and getting, basically it's market share, you know, is what we're talking about here. So tell me, as you scan eastern and western Nebraska, what topics or projects are you most focused on right now? Just what's top of mind with you, and what are you implementing and funding?
Well, it's easy. People attraction is job one in Nebraska. It's job one for our agency.
Yeah.
We need more Nebraskans to fill available jobs. Related, of course, closely to that are issues like housing and childcare and placemaking.
Can't have one without the other.
It's pretty hard if they don't have somewhere to live. Hard to convince them to move.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. So it is a great indication of how the practice of economic development has changed, become more complex over the years, because we would never have dreamed of having a conversation about childcare in an economic development organization 20 years ago. It just wouldn't have come up. But today it is absolutely an economic development issue.
How is the rural end of our state when it comes to housing and childcare? What do they have to do out there, since they don't have density?
Right.
And on the east side of the state, it's a little different. How are you dealing with that, and what's a good solution for those folks out west?
Yeah, it is a challenge. There's no way around that. It is. The density thing, let's talk about both housing and childcare. It does matter in that space. If you're going to bring in a housing developer, they want to know they can build a certain number of units. If you're going to start up a childcare, you got to have a certain number of children to fill the slots. So that goes to why we are hoping to convene some regional conversations and get economic developers and communities thinking about doing the work regionally. Because maybe in my small town, I don't have enough density to bring in a housing developer to do the number of homes. But maybe if I collaborate with 5 or 6 neighbors, maybe now I do. We need to think a little differently about those things.
When it comes to housing, are we providing or helping get low interest loans for people that need to build or spiff up a house in Ogallala, for instance?
Sure, there are all those kinds of opportunities out there. The overall comment I would make about housing, can you think of another industry, another manufacturing concern that does things exactly the way they did them 100 years ago? No. Housing, generally speaking, we make the house the same way we made it 100 years ago. So the general observation I would have is we need to think innovatively, different construction techniques, different financing,
How about sustainability? Can we finally embrace sustainability across the entire state? And let's say all new buildings should be sustainable and conform to sustainability standards. Would that be a popular thing that people could get behind?
I'm sure it depends on how you define sustainable, right?
Okay, all right.
You know,
green.
People are a little concerned with the cost of housing, shall we say?
Yes.
So if we're talking about anything that raises the cost of a house by 20% or 25%, no, they're probably not going to get behind that. So it depends.
Okay, let's go back to workforce real quick. Is there any precise, if I talk to people in Fremont or Wayne or Nebraska, whatever, you know, and they said, we really want to get some more people in here. And I said, well, if you're a product, really, essentially, we're all a product, right? Selling our community to somebody. Who's the customer? And precisely how are they different from somebody else? Could most of our economic developers answer that question?
You would have to ask those economic developers. My suspicion is we still have work to do in that space because it is relatively new, right? We aren't used to historically having to sell ourselves in that way. Today we do. And I'll say this related to that. I think one of our roles today at the Department of Economic Development, along with our partners at State Chamber and Nebraska Economic Developers Association, chambers, local chambers, we have to continue to lift up this profession. We need really strong professionals in local economic development chamber roles, because we could have any program we want at the state level or federal level. If there's no one in your hometown to execute that program, it's irrelevant. So we need to lift this profession so they are really good, they feel really supported, they're really in a good place to do the work you're talking about, and so many other things.
How about chambers? Are they equally insecure about what they're doing and should be doing, and the degree to which people like them and want to be linked to them? Just curious.
Equally insecure to whom?
Economic developers.
Oh, I don't think any of these folks are insecure. I wouldn't put it that way at all.
Not the right word, I guess, but
no, I wouldn't say
going
that
through change.
at all.
Going
yes,
through change.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Casey Belitz, thank you so much for being our economic developer here and coming and telling us all about your fascinating world and your complex world.
It is complex.
And I respect the fact that you have a good sense of humor despite all the stuff coming at you.
You almost have to, Lynn.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for watching us. We're doing our very best here to entertain you and educate you at the same time. This is WowBiz Nebraska. I am Lynn Hinderaker, and you will see us again and again down the road. Just keep that in mind. We'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.